perhaps if you're in our part of the world, you're waiting for the 1:30 kickoff on the 23rd of October on the second day of the Super 12s of this T20 World Cup. But our part of the world also shares a time zone with Sri Lanka. They'd be saying, what's the big deal about these India games? We brushed them aside and became Asia Cup champions. We are the team to beat in this part of the world, even though we had to get here the hard way. Ireland come up against Sri Lanka in what, in the eyes of the Indian fans, would be the appetizer for the day. But albeit is an important Super 12 encounter for two teams that have had to really work hard to get here. They've had to brush aside a lot of results in a fascinating round one. And here we are now back at the Bellarive Oval in Hobart, where Ireland and Sri Lanka will play their first game of the Super 12s. All starts afresh. They can put behind what went down in round one, and we will be building up to that game on ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Anil Kumble back with me, and again we'll enjoy I think it's a luxury to be neutral. Don't you think, Anil,
yes,
in these
absolutely.
games?
Yes. No, Sri Lanka and Ireland will just sit and watch how the game unfolds, and you don't have to have any tension.
I can promise people one thing. We'll get some good Bhanuka Rajapaksa stories out of Anil Kumble, right? If you're joining us nice and early in the morning, it should be fun. And on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, we of course must bring in, I wouldn't call them the ambassadors from both sides, but the objective analysts that they are. Let me first go to Farveez Maharoof. Of course, is our regular, has been with us wearing that lucky yellow shirt from the Asia Cup, which I must say you've kept carefully. You're a superstitious man. You're ready for this again.
Always go with the trend. Never change it. Why change it? We won the big games, and so good to see. Good to see Anil Bhai in the studio. I mean, as always, very cool, looking smart, and I'm sure that he's supporting Sri Lanka today.
Is he poor Niall? You already outnumbered him.
No, he'll nail me.
He'll nail you. All right. It's a very warm welcome. I'm handing out a debut on our live show to Niall O'Brien from the United Kingdom right now. Now, normally when Irishmen have to stay up till about 3 or 4 a.m., it's because they're staying up all night. I think Niall's now in a different phase of his life. He's set an alarm, he's woken up, he's a dad, and he's joining us nice and early. There's some expectation and optimism around Ireland, Niall, as they start their Super 12 campaign.
Where's my cap? I'm normally, when you make your debut, you're presented a cap. I'm just disappointed nobody at the front door this morning with a cap presentation.
It's supposed to be a virtual cap, right? So my producer's going to put it on any second right now. So just give yourself enough room.
Listen, great to be with you. Ireland chuffed to bits. They got through to that Super 12 stage. Go back 12 months. They were so disappointing in the UAE, but they've come a long way. So I think there's a lot of optimism and a lot of confidence actually. And it's not displaced confidence. So I'm looking forward to this encounter. Ireland, Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka obviously Asia Cup champions, and what a stage for Ireland to maybe take down a big scalp first up in the Super 12.
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? Can Ireland now continue their giant killing in the Super 12 phase of the tournament? And Hobart is the venue to do it. The West Indies went down over here, and now Sri Lanka have made the trip from Geelong. Now, as far as Sri Lanka go, Farveez, this is just expected, right? They have this plan. They will mess up the first game of a big tournament, and everybody will think they'll write them off, and then they'll start kicking their campaign off. So we shouldn't worry after what happened against Namibia. This is just Sri Lanka, the new Sri Lanka side.
Yeah, they are very good at giving heart attack, to be honest. Looking at the Namibian game, lots of negativity, and remember that after the first game, my net run rate was minus 2.7. That was a massive hit, but they did really well to come back to win against Netherlands as well as the other team. I mean, it depends on how you start. I remember even during the Asia Cup, they were thrashed by Afghanistan, but they came back really well. But it's too close to comfort. You need to start well, especially in the Super 12s. I mean, looking at the group that Sri Lanka is in, it's a tough group. It's going to be very hard, but it's a good start to play Ireland, and Ireland definitely has the I would say upper hand when it comes to conditions, playing 3 games in Hobart previously. So all to play for. I think Sri Lanka will be ready to go. There were lots of injuries, but I'm pretty sure that they'll be up for it.
All right. Now, toss news from Hobart is that Andy Balboni has won it. He's going to bat first. Does that surprise you, Niall, to a degree, given Ireland's big wins in the first round came chasing? They're doing something different here in their first Super 12 game.
Yeah, it does surprise me. Ireland historically go back to, Pakistan in 2007, always chase well. They like to know what they're chasing and then have a crack, have a good old-fashioned Irish crack at the chase. Never been a good team at assessing conditions early on and realising what a good score is. So that does surprise me. When I was in Hobart last week, the ground staff said that we're using 2 pitches for all the games. So 9 games, they're using 2 pitches. So it's going to be a huge surface. So whether they're worried about chasing against spin, I can only think that's the reason. It is a bit of a surprise to me. Hobart is a very difficult ground to defend. We've seen that recently in the round 1 phase. So that does surprise me. Unless Andy Balbirnie and the coaching staff know something we don't. But I would have thought Ireland would like to chase, confidence high, chase against Scotland, chase against the West Indies, keep the formula the same.
Always a tricky thing when you win tosses. Sometimes you prefer losing tosses, Anil. When you're looking at the opposition, you're looking at surfaces and looking at the strength of your own team. After hearing what Niall said?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit surprised too. I mean, Farveez hasn't changed. He's come with his yellow shirt.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to change the luck for Sri Lanka. I was a bit surprised because hearing Andrew Balbirnie at the toss as well, he spoke about the spinners. He said we've played Afghanistan before, so we've handled their spinners. So, we're not really too worried about Sri Lankan spinners. Yes, we respect them, but we're not too worried. But the decision that he's taken at the toss certainly suggests that they are concerned about playing those spinners, chasing a score.
Yeah, I like that comment though, because I mean, it's not like something that was asked of him by Ian Bishop. He chose to give that information.
That's what I'm saying. So obviously they have discussed this heavily in their team meetings about the 2 spinners that Sri Lanka have. And it came out. It came out in the way he spoke and even in the decision that they have taken. They've won 2 games there in Hobart. They know the conditions. I know it's a used wicket, but it's still a 40-over game. Conditions won't really change. And he also spoke about the conditions, the weather conditions being similar to Ireland, and that should be in their favour. So all things in favour. I'm a bit surprised that they chose to bat first.
Interesting. We'll see if that decision comes back to haunt them. But we have seen teams batting first have the upper hand, and we saw that maybe even losing the toss at times is not a bad thing. But yesterday, New Zealand, after batting first, just took the game away from Australia, albeit in different conditions. We'll see how Ireland start off against Sri Lanka. Just confirm team news. Ireland go with the same team that has engineered their way into the Super 12s. No changes at all. Paul Sterling, excellent, got some runs. That's big for Ireland. Balbirnie gave them the start they needed. And then that's a pretty solid batting lineup. Curtis Camphor's in good form. George Dockrell's got runs in the tournament already. And Garrett Delaney was man of the match in that last game. He shares the bowling responsibilities with Simi Singh, with Josh Little in good form. Barry McCarthy and Mark Adair wrap up the seamers. So that's the Ireland side. That is Ireland's best side, Niall. No surprises that they go in with the same 11?
No surprises, mate. And to be honest with the 4 guys that are on the bench, I hate to say it, but it's very hard to see them getting a game in this tournament because the coach is so set with that 11. The only person you'll look at maybe is Barry McCarthy. He's picked up 1 wicket in the tournament so far, going at just under 10 and over. He's a good power play bowler, Barry McCarthy. Once you get outside that power play, he's quite expensive. He goes at over 9 in the middle overs and goes at over 10 at the back end. But as you say, Sterling getting runs, first time he's got runs in a long time for Ireland in T20 cricket. He had a very lean year, but he's a fantastic cricketer. The big one for me, we talk about Sterling, yes, and Josh Little, yes. These guys are super players. Lorcan Tucker behind the stumps. 12 months ago, Ireland lost in Namibia in Sharjah and dumped out of the World Cup. Lorcan Tucker wasn't even playing. Since the new coach has come in, he's been promoted to bat at number 3. He's striking over 140, averaging over 40. So that's someone that's just going about his business and doing a great job for Ireland. And you've got the likes of Mark Adair with the new ball and the power play. They've got a pretty settled team. The only thing, Gareth Delaney's been good with his leg spin, driving the ball into the surface, not getting much turn, but actually in T20 cricket, you want to slide the ball in, LBW and bowls. They're a little light in spin. Simi Singh, not a big turn of the ball. So that's one area I think Sri Lanka should target. They should target against the spinners. But in saying that, if Ireland have runs on the board, that'll bring the spinners into play.
All right. Well, we'll see how Ireland go, but they are settled with this 11. There's a lot to like about Lachlan Tucker as well. Good-looking batter. I want to see a lot more of him in the Super 12s, and he has his chance today against Sri Lanka. It's a Sri Lankan side that will have to make do with slightly different top order. After losing Danushka Gunatilaka from the tournament, they've also now lost Pathum Nissanka, albeit just for 1 game for now. So it's going to be Ashan Bandara's first game of the tournament, and otherwise the rest of the team pretty much remains the same. We know that Dushmanta Chamir is a big blow, so the likes of Binura Fernando and Lairu Kumara will have to take the seam bowling responsibilities. alongside their spin threat of Hasaranga, Thikshana, Karunaratne and Dasun Shanaka, the rest of the bowling options. Is that the likely lineup as well, or the batting order as well, Farveez? The Dhananjay may open in the absence of Nissanka, or are you expecting Ashin Bandara to step up at the top of the order?
Nah, I think Dhananjay De Silva will step up the order, and Charita Salanga will move to number 3, which is his favourable spot. And number 4 and 5, possibly depending on the situation. Bhanuga Rajapaksha, there's a possibility he can bat at 4. Dasun Shanaka is also maybe can go up ahead, because Ashin Bandar is a player who likes to milk the singles to start with. He's not a big hitter and a brilliant fielder to be in the field. But I expect Bhanuga to bat at 4 and Dasun Shanaka, especially chasing a score. If it's after 10 overs, Dasun Shanaka to bat at 5 and Ashin Bandar is 6. So Pathum Nisang is a big loss. I mean, he's nursing a groin injury, and they rightly so. The management is not taking a risk with him by pushing him to play this game. At least to give a few more days to get his adapters right. And also, yesterday's practice session was cancelled. He was supposed to have a fitness test yesterday, so to assess him. But because of the weather, they couldn't do that. So I think that's a smart move, not to push him too much, because the amount of injury Sri Lanka has, they can't afford to have one more player going down.
This is literally, I think, the 11 fittest players available at the moment for Sri Lanka, and they'd really be hoping that Pathum Nissanka isn't out for long. The Nissanka-Mendes partnership at the top has been such a big part of their Asia Cup success. Now, the big challenge today, especially with Sri Lanka bowling first now, is going to be if Ireland can get the better of Thikshana and Hasaranga, given that the spotlight is on them. The seamers are perhaps not Sri Lanka's most potent weapon with ball. And Andrew Balbirnie's talked it up already. So it's one of the few teams, Anil, that rely on 2 spinners. I'm sure you enjoy such teams. But there's a reason that Thikshana, Hasaranga are a threat even in Australian conditions?
No, the reason being that they are very consistent with the lengths that they bowl, and also the variations that they have. I mean, Thikshana flicks the ball and the pace at which he bowls. And Hasaranga is very smart. He uses the lack of pace to a great extent, and also his googlies have been really really good. And he teases. He's not afraid to toss the ball up and expects the batsman to go after, and has got wickets. So he's not afraid that the batter is actually going to hit the bowler. So that's something that is very, very important if you have to be a T20 successful bowler, and the kind of success that Hasaranga has had over the last couple of years in all formats. Not just internationals, but also in the IPL. He's been fantastic, and he's their go-to bowler. And I'm really glad that Sri Lanka has taken the cue of not being afraid to use a spin bowler towards the last part of the innings. Invariably you sort of finish your spin bowler by the 15th, 16th over. But Thikshana has been someone who's actually gone on to bowl their 18th, 19th over.
You can almost see that they're giving their spinners key responsibilities, almost like what you'd give a strike bowler. Now, Anil Kumble talks about Hasaranga's googlies. It's got him a lot of success in T20 cricket in recent times. We almost tend to think that batters need to prepare themselves to play Hasaranga as a pure googly bowler. But he's got 42 wickets at an economy of under a run a ball in T20I since 2021, bowling the googly. Bowls a lot of those googlies, more than even sometimes bowls the leg break. Is that a fair way to tell batters to prepare against Hasaranga? That it's easier to be ready for the googly?
You still have to play it.
Yeah.
It's not that the batters are not picking his googly. Yeah. It's just that they're not ready to play a shot, because the length at which he bowls and the pace at which he bowls, he keeps varying the pace. Variation, I mean, the ball can only go 3 different ways. Right. The pace at which he bowls, that's another variation. And he uses the crease as well, the depth of the crease and the width of the crease, which is really good to see from a spinner. So it's not just the variation with the hand and the types of balls that you bowl, but also at the angles at which you bowl, which he uses really, really well.
Now, he's very good in the middle overs. That's where you think Hasaranga fancies himself. Or alternately, that's where Sri Lanka want to use Hasaranga most potently. Over 7 to 15, you could see it's a large percentage of his overs in those middle overs, and he strikes at 16. His economy is a run of ball. You take that, and he doesn't give you too many boundaries either. You take that from your front line spinner. Mahesh Thikshana, on the other hand, as Anil Kumble points out, now has been given a different role. We spoke about this with Stephen Fleming yesterday too in the preview to this game, where Theekshana was used as a specialist power play bowler almost in the IPL towards the fag end of the season for CSK. He's now bowled nearly 15% of his overs between 16 and 20. He's bowled the penultimate over in key games at the Asia Cup. He bowled it in round 1 here as well. So we're seeing a nice spread from Theekshana in the early parts to the end. I wonder what it takes for a spinner to be effective at the death, whether it's more than skill set. You spoke yesterday, Anil, you need to want to do it, right? So it's not a captain, it's the bowler?
No, it's the bowler and also the heart, saying, okay, I have the confidence to back myself of not being, allowing the batsman to hit. And I think the confidence that he has with the skills that he has is extremely important, the self-belief. And he has shown that. He has grown over the last few games that he has played. Every time he comes on to bowl, whether it's in the power play or in the death, he's been fantastic. And like I said, the control that he has over the length at which he bowls, and he's a bit like Ajantha Mendes when he first came in, and the pace at which he bowls. He obviously gets a lot more bounce here in Australia than what he gets in the subcontinent pitches. So that's an added bonus if you're a spinner.
Yeah. Now, I loved that Andy Balbirnie said at the toss, like we've discussed before, we've played Afghanistan so much that we know how to play high quality spin. I think it was telling to a degree. I don't know if it was just the captain being honest, or perhaps with some swag, Niall, he's just told Sri Lanka, we're not too worried about Theekshana and Hasaranga because we've played Rashid Khan enough. Now, would you sense that's perhaps a nice way to start the day?
It's certainly putting a marker out there. One thing I'll say, watching Ireland for years and playing with them for years, he mentions Afghanistan, Ireland, and Paul Sterling in particular. He smashes wrist spin. His record against wrist spin is second to none. So whether it's Theekshana, whether it's Hasaranga, Paul Sterling is a pretty good matchup for those guys. Andy Balbirnie is a good sweeper. We've seen in the last game, okay, it's a finger spinner, Aki Hussain, but they smashed him. They didn't let him settle. So Paul Sterling will sweep. Generally, anything outside off stump, Paul Sterling is sweeping, and Andy Balbirnie is a good sweeper, both behind and in front of square. They don't come outside the crease. So Paul Sterling and Balbirnie never come down the track. They all stay home. Lorcan Tucker, on the other hand, the sweeper, comes down the pitch. So it's interesting, but the bowling at the back end, the death overs, when you bowl a spinner and one of your trump cards, as a batting team, you think, right, normally you set yourself up for the last 4 overs. Last 4, let's get 12 and over, 48, 50. If you know you've got a trump card like a Hasaranga or a Theekshana, you have to go probably 2 overs earlier. So you have to take a little bit more risk early on in the piece. So actually, from Sri Lanka's point of view, it's quite clever because you're saying, if you're going to go against our trump card in the last 2, 3, 4 overs, there's a good chance we're going to roll you over. So actually, you're asking the batting team, the opposition, take a risk earlier. So that gives yourselves a bit of a better opportunity. So Ireland have to box clever. They have to be aggressive, but they may need to be a bit more aggressive in the middle overs than they wish to be, and just give themselves a little bit of grace at the back end. But they are a good batting team against spin. They spent a lot of time in the subcontinent playing spin down the years at camps. And in Australia and Hobart, when I was there last week, the ball isn't turning much. There's good bounce, and the square boundaries are around 60 to 65 metres. So actually those sweep shots, reverse sweeps, pretty good value. In Geelong, the pitch was a bit slow, a bit stoppy. It suited spin, and the boundaries are a little bit bigger. So I think it might be a bit more difficult for the Sri Lankan spinners today.
It's a good set of conditions coming together for Ireland. If they had to pick a venue and pick a type of surface to play Sri Lanka, it's perhaps more to their liking. Now, we've seen Theekshana bowl in the power play. We've shown you Hasaranga's potency in the middle overs. But is there a case for Hasaranga to be used differently, especially in the absence of some of their strike fast bowlers? Gaurav Sundararaman, we're not going to leave a pre-show without him, tries to find the answers to that.
Thanks, Raunak. One of the biggest challenges for Sri Lanka is in their pace bowling department. With the loss of Chamira, they have only Lahiru Kumara in terms of experience to handle that department. Since the last World Cup, they have the second lowest average and second lowest strike rate with respect to fast bowling. This is not a great sign. How can they kind of solve this problem? One way is to actually bowl Wanindu Hasaranga in the power play. His numbers, he goes at 6.8 in the power play, which is excellent for a spinner. But he's hardly bowled in that phase. He bowls mainly in the middle, and he relies on his googly, especially in the middle overs, to get those wickets. Is there a particular reason that he's not being bowl more often in the power play. I would like the panel to kind of explain why, in spite of their fast bowling being so poor, why is that their best spinners, Theekshana and Hasaranga, can't bowl in tandem in the power play?
Okay, Farveez, you could take that up. We don't see a lot of spinners bowl in tandem in the power play. Theekshana does it. Hasaranga doesn't do it quite so often. Your thoughts on what Gaurav just put through?
Yeah, I mean, I think with only two frontline spinners in the team, I mean, you can use Andananda De Silva, but Sirpa Dasun Shan will be reluctant to use him, especially with the top order, so many right-handers, and in the top order of Ireland, as well as the square boundary being such small. I think the reluctance of using the fast bowlers will be higher. And also, when it comes to the fast bowling department, the problem has been, as you said, the frontline bowlers have been injured. Lairo Kumar and Bruno Fernando have performed well whenever they got the opportunity, but they're making a comeback after about 6 months, both of them. So they also need to get their match fitness side. I mean, you can bowl much overs in the nets, but it's very different to bowl in a match. So it'll be tough work. But I expect Lairo Kumar, the way he bowled in the last game against Netherlands, to come good. And also with Paul Sterling, it's very important to be aggressive against him. Niall said about he's very good against spin. I've seen him, smacking good spinners out of the park. So it's important for Sri Lanka to attack Paul Sterling up front with probably Lairo Kumara and Mahesh Theekshana. And also using Mahesh Theekshana for me, it's ideally a couple of overs in the power play and the 2 overs in the latter part of the inning, especially with Ireland chasing putting up a score, not wanting to chase down, especially I feel. They don't want to chase down against top quality 2 spinners of Wanindu and Mahesh Theekshana. So these are all mind games. It's very important how you use the Mahesh Theekshana's 4 overs and Wanindu Hasaranga's. I expect Wanindu to bowl his 4 overs in the middle overs. In case if Ireland has a good start, he could bowl a over in the power play. Ideally for Wanindu, he loves batsmen going after him. That's where he picks up wickets.
I wonder if there's just a reluctance from wrist spinners to want to bowl a lot in the power play. Your Akshar Patels and Washington Sundars fancy bowling in the power play, but even Yuzvendra Chahal, Rashid Khan, rarely do we ever see them want to come in until the 6th or the 7th, 8th over.
No, I don't think it's a reluctance from the bowler. It could perhaps be a strategy that the team management look at. I mean, Hasaranga, Sri Lanka go with 2 spinners who are their primary strike bowlers, so to speak, with Chamira not being there. So obviously you don't want your 2 strike bowlers to be used up in the power play, because in the middle overs is where the game is made and you need wickets. And if you can, and also the advantage of not having the field restrictions in after the power play. So that's something that I'm sure as a strategy Sri Lanka would be using Hasaranga. And mind you, on this ground, Niall alluded to the sides being smaller.
Yes.
So the spinners may have to bowl slightly fuller. And I'm sure as batters, when you see these sides smaller, shorter, and then the long, is almost 80 meters, you still would like to sweep and reverse sweep. So if you're fuller, then you have better chance of getting batsmen out, LBW or bowled, and look to make them hit straight. So that's the change, subtle change as a spinner that you may have to do. And because of the bounce, it's a lot easier to sort of sweep if it's a shorter boundary as well.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on the lens then that Sri Lanka's spinners bowl. That could very well be the difference. But Ireland know this. They know that it's Hasaranga and Theekshana that are the real threat, with due respect to Sri Lanka's seamers. If you bring up numbers for their seamers, you could see this has been almost a recurring problem. Yes, the likes of Dilshan Madhushanka, Pramod Madhushan, who's also injured, we should mention that, managed to win them an Asia Cup and did a job. But with an average of just under 30, it's the worst by pacers in T20Is in 2022. Strike rate too is a problem, with just behind Bangladesh on that list. So the seam bowling department is a concern. I'm guessing, Niall, the chat for Ireland's batters is exactly this. Take on Sri Lanka's pacers straight away, go hard at them, put them under pressure?
Yeah, I think so. Sterling knows no other way. And actually, Andy Balbirnie in 2022 has had a good record. He's striking about 132, I think, for the year. So he's had a decent return, and he's back in form again. But when you bat first, you've got no other way. You have to go out and put runs on the board. That's why the toss, I'm so surprised, because if Ireland had bowled first, for example, and restricted Sri Lanka to 150, 160, they could have played a bit more strategic chase. But now they've got to go out and put big runs on the board. So they will attack. Sterling knows no other way. We've seen him for 15 years. And he's back in form, and he knows no other way. So Sterling will be on the attack from ball 1. Don't be surprised if he charges down first ball and tries to put one into the stands. Balbirnie will stay leg side to the pace, tries to flay the ball through the offside. So Ireland, it's going to be. I don't think Ireland fear this Sri Lanka team whatsoever. I think Ireland respects Sri Lanka. They're on a bit of a similar journey, really. I take Sri Lanka back when I watched them at the World Cup last year in the UAE. You could see a team really progressing. They had a number of quick bowlers. They were doing nicely. They were bringing through some good bats. Ireland, they hit rock bottom last year in Sharjah, and now they're climbing the way up. They're actually climbed a lot quicker than people back home expected, myself included. I wasn't sure they're going to get out of that group in Hobart. They've done really well. But I've also been in the team when you get out of that group, you want to get a win or two. You don't want to be like Scotland last year. Scotland were brilliant last year in Oman. They won 3 out of 3. They beat Bangladesh, etc. And then they got to the Super 12 stage and they just didn't put a performance in. So that's actually worse. You've done all the hard work now. You got to the Super 12. Now you want to take down a couple of teams and go home with points in the bag in 10, 12 days' time. You want to go home with a couple of wins in the Super 12, with your head held high. So it's going to be a tough game for Ireland, but I don't think they fear Sri Lanka whatsoever.
Sure. Right, fair enough. And a lot depends on Paul Stirling. I must ask you though, Niall, very quickly. You know the man, 15 years we've seen Paul Stirling, a veteran of over 100 T20Is. He finally got some runs on Friday. He's got a game on Sunday. How would Friday night and Saturday night have gone?
Friday night leading into Saturday morning. It's with Paul. The beauty of Paul Stirling is whether he gets 100 or 50 balls or first ball done, when you see him in the hotel, whether it be in the bar or the restaurant, you don't know what he's done. He's very level. I speak to him nearly every day. He's had a tough time. He had a really bad CPL. He got 15 runs in 5 games for Guyana, and then he goes out and gets a great score against the West Indies. So he's a very level character. So he would have celebrated, no doubt about it, as all the Irish boys. I've got the videos. I've got the Saturday morning in Hobart to prove they had a good night.
All right, fantastic. Let's see if the celebrations go on today. Farveez, first innings prediction score, please.
Conditions, if Sri Lanka can manage to keep Ireland under 150, I think it's a decent effort.
150, 160, Anil, and we've got a game.
Yeah, that's what I think Sri Lanka will be hoping. But if I think Ireland can get more, I'm sure they will back themselves to get to 160, 165, and if that happens, then I think Sri Lanka will be under pressure.
Niall, first inning score, final word from you.
166 for 7. How about that?
How about that, indeed? 166 for 7. I think you take that if you're Ireland. Let's see who's the happier team at half-time. Big thank you to Anil Kumble in studio, as well as Farveez, Maharoof and Niall O'Brien. We'll pick up this chat at the end of the Ireland innings on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout.